Have you ever found yourself saying yes to something, even though deep down you didn't want to? Maybe it was helping a neighbor, attending an event, or taking on a task that drained your energy. And after, you felt that familiar weight, the mix of exhaustion and guilt that follows saying yes when your heart really wanted to say no. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. For many of us, especially as we age, saying no can feel like a betrayal, not just to others, but somehow to ourselves as well. I've spent years learning that this guilt doesn't have to be part of the process. In fact, learning to say no is one of the most empowering lessons I've discovered, and it has completely changed the way I approach life in my 60s, 70s, and now beyond. Saying no isn't about being selfish, it's about honoring your energy, your time, and your priorities. When we were younger, it's easy to fall into the habit of constantly agreeing. We want to please people, avoid conflict, or simply feel needed. But over time, that habit can quietly erode our peace of mind, our energy, and even our health. I noticed that whenever I overcommit, I started feeling drained, irritable, and sometimes resentful, even toward people I cared about. And the irony is, those very commitments were meant to show kindness or loyalty. The first step I took was simply acknowledging my feelings. I allowed myself to recognize that saying yes when I didn't truly want to was harming me. For a long time, I thought that guilt was unavoidable, that it was part of being a good person, a good spouse, a good friend, or a caring family member. But over time, I realized that guilt often comes from ignoring our own boundaries. If you consistently put yourself last, your mental and physical well-being will pay the price. Next, I started practicing small, safe no's in my everyday life. I began with minor situations where the stakes were low, declining an extra piece of dessert, skipping a meeting I didn't enjoy, or politely turning down an invitation I wasn't interested in. The goal wasn't to shock anyone, it was to retrain myself to respect my own choices and to notice that the world didn't collapse when I said no. Each small success built confidence and taught me that my time and energy are worth protecting. One powerful strategy one discovered is framing a no with honesty and kindness. For instance, instead of feeling pressured to make up excuses or lie, I would simply say, "I'm sorry, I can't this time." That's it. No over-explaining, no apologizing excessively. People often appreciate honesty more than we expect. They understand that life is full of commitments, and respecting your limits doesn't mean you care any less about them. Another shift in thinking that helped me was realizing that I can only give my best when I'm at my best. If I constantly say yes to everything, my energy gets diluted. My time becomes fragmented, and I end up spreading myself too thin. By setting boundaries and saying no where necessary, I am able to show up fully, more patient, more present, and more joyful when I do choose to say yes. I also learned the importance of prioritizing what truly matters. Not every request, event, or obligation deserves the same weight. I started asking myself, does this align with my values or goals? Will it nourish my mind, body, or spirit, or will it drain me? This simple question became a powerful filter, allowing me to focus on meaningful connections, fulfilling activities, and self-care, rather than automatically defaulting to yes. Saying no also gave me the freedom to say yes to myself. I started spending more time on hobbies I love, walking outdoors, reading, or simply resting without feeling guilty. It became clear that honoring my own needs was not only healthy, but it also improved my relationships. When I was less resentful, less exhausted, and more present, the people around me noticed. It turns out, protecting my energy didn't make me selfish, it made me a better friend, partner, and family member. Of course, learning to say no isn't always easy, especially when you're worried about disappointing people or hurting feelings. That's why the mindset shift is crucial. Saying no doesn't mean you are rejecting a person, it means you are choosing to respect your own limits. It's a form of self-respect that ultimately benefits everyone in the long run. So, where do you start if you've never practiced this before? Begin by noticing the moments where you automatically say yes out of obligation rather than desire. Pay attention to the physical and emotional signals, tight shoulders, fatigue, anxiety, that indicate you might be overcommitting. Then, pick a small situation and practice saying no with grace and honesty. Celebrate that small victory and gradually take on slightly bigger challenges. Over time, you'll find that your confidence grows and the guilt that used to accompany a no slowly diminishes. Now that we've explored the first steps, acknowledging your feelings, practicing small no's, framing them with honesty, and prioritizing yourself, there are additional strategies that can deepen this practice. In the next part, we'll talk about more advanced techniques to confidently say no, how to navigate family expectations, and how to maintain healthy relationships while protecting your energy. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. As we continue, let's dive a bit deeper into the art of saying no without feeling that heavy weight of guilt. By this point, you may have started noticing how liberating it can feel to protect your time and energy, but the real challenge often comes when expectations from family, friends, or even long-standing habits get in the way. One of the most powerful strategies I've learned is giving yourself permission to pause before responding. In the past, I would immediately answer yes, thinking that a quick response would make things easier or more polite. But now, I remind myself that it's okay to say, "Let me think about that and get back to you." Even a brief pause gives you the chance to assess whether this commitment aligns with your priorities and energy levels. It also communicates to others that you are thoughtful and deliberate, not careless or dismissive. Another key approach is setting clear boundaries. This might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to being the person who's always available. For example, I established specific times during the day when I focus on myself or my own activities. I communicate these boundaries gently but firmly. Something as simple as saying, "I'm not available in the evenings because I need time to rest," can make a big difference. Over time, people learn to respect your limits, and the guilt gradually fades because you're not hiding or sneaking around to make things fit. They understand your rhythm. It's also helpful to recognize that saying no doesn't have to be abrupt or unkind. Language matters. I often use phrases like, "I wish I could help, but I can't right now," or "I'm focusing on other priorities at the moment, so I'll have to pass." These statements are polite, yet they don't compromise your boundaries. You're being honest, but in a way that softens the delivery and avoids unnecessary tension. We also need to address one of the biggest sources of guilt, family expectations. Many of us grew up believing that we must always put family first, no matter the cost. But here's the truth I learned after decades of experience: you cannot pour from an empty cup. By caring for your own needs first, you actually create space to show up more fully for your loved ones. When I started saying no to extra obligations that drained me, I found that I was calmer, more patient, and more present when I did say yes to family. In fact, the relationships improved because I wasn't bringing stress or resentment into them. Another helpful practice is learning to distinguish between urgent and important requests. Not every plea for your time or energy is critical. If something isn't important or doesn't truly align with your values, it's okay to decline. For instance, I used to attend events or meetings simply out of habit, thinking I needed to show up. But now, I pause and ask myself, is this truly meaningful? Will this enrich my life or someone else's life in a significant way? If the answer is no, then I practice saying no confidently. Accountability can also make this easier. I share my goals for saying no with a trusted friend or family member who understands my need for boundaries. Just having someone who supports you in honoring your limits reinforces that it's okay to protect yourself. Sometimes, hearing someone say, "Good for you, that's a healthy choice," can silence the inner critic that whispers, "You're being selfish." Let's not forget the importance of self-compassion. We're often our harshest critics, especially when we think we might disappoint someone. But the truth is, saying no responsibly is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. I remind myself regularly that I have a finite amount of energy, time, and mental focus. Protecting these resources allows me to live fully, engage deeply, and even be more generous when I choose to say yes. One of the practices I found most transformative is visualizing the outcome of saying no. I picture myself calmly declining a request, feeling grounded and unshaken, and then moving on to what truly matters. This visualization trains my mind to respond with confidence rather than anxiety. It also reinforces that saying no is not catastrophic, it is simply a choice that respects both myself and the other person. Another technique is offering alternatives. Sometimes, saying no can feel easier if you provide a solution or redirect the request. For example, if someone asks for help that you cannot provide, you might say, "I'm unable to do that right now, but perhaps this resource or another person can help." This approach allows you to maintain kindness and connection without sacrificing your boundaries. Finally, one lesson that became crystal clear over time is that practicing no consistently reshapes your relationships. People start to understand your limits and appreciate your honesty. Trust deepens, not weakens, because you are communicating openly. I used to fear that saying no would hurt friendships or family ties, but the opposite is true. By showing that I respect myself, I create an example for others to respect me in return. By now, you've seen that saying no without guilt involves more than just words. It's a mindset, a practice, and a lifestyle. It requires reflection, self-compassion, and clear communication. But the payoff is enormous: more energy, greater peace, and healthier, more honest relationships. In the next part, we'll explore the final strategies for saying no, how to deal with lingering guilt, and how to make this approach a lasting habit that enhances your life every day. You'll see how this simple shift can completely transform the way you interact with the world while keeping your peace intact. Now that we've explored the strategies and mindset behind saying no confidently, let's talk about the final pieces that make this approach truly life-changing. One of the most important aspects is dealing with lingering guilt. Even when you follow all the right steps, sometimes that old voice creeps in, the one that whispers, "You should have said yes, or people might be disappointed." The key is not to ignore it, but to acknowledge it, and then gently remind yourself why you said no in the first place. I like to use a simple mantra: saying no is saying yes to myself. It sounds straightforward, but it's remarkably powerful. Every time you repeat it, it reinforces the idea that your time, energy, and peace of mind are valuable. It also reminds you that protecting your limits is a form of self-care, not selfishness. Over time, the guilt begins to fade because it no longer feels like a betrayal. It feels like a choice rooted in respect for both yourself and the people around you. Another important element is reflection. Take a few moments at the end of each day or week to think about the times you said no and the impact it had. Did you feel more relaxed? Did your focus improve? Were your interactions more positive? By noticing these outcomes, you reinforce the benefits and create a positive feedback loop. I started journaling briefly about this, noting one instance where I said no and how it helped me, and it made a huge difference in how confident I felt over time. It's also essential to embrace consistency. Boundaries work best when they are predictable. People around you will learn to respect your choices if they see that you honor them day in and day out. I remember when I first started saying no to certain recurring requests, my friends and family tested the boundaries, asking multiple times or gently nudging me. But as I remained calm and consistent, they gradually adjusted, and I noticed a remarkable shift. My relationships became healthier and more respectful without me feeling overextended or resentful. We should also acknowledge that saying no is not just about avoiding commitments or favors, it's about curating your life. It's about choosing what truly matters to you and letting go of what doesn't. In my own life, this meant saying no to extra volunteer activities that drained me, to social gatherings that felt obligatory rather than joyful, and even to small tasks that others insisted I take on. Each no created space for more meaningful yes, time for reading, long walks, hobbies, or connecting deeply with family in ways that truly nourished my spirit. Another aspect I want to emphasize is the ripple effect. When you model healthy boundaries, you inspire others to do the same. I've seen this in my own family. By confidently saying no, my children and grandchildren began to respect their own time and limits more. They saw that it's not rude or selfish, it's empowering. This realization can transform entire family dynamics, creating a culture of respect, balance, and understanding. It's also helpful to remember that some no's are temporary. You might decline a request today because it doesn't fit your schedule or energy, but that doesn't mean you'll never say yes in the future. This perspective helps reduce guilt because it frames no as a situational decision rather than a permanent rejection. I often tell myself, I can revisit this later if it aligns better, which keeps my relationships flexible and compassionate without sacrificing my boundaries. Let's not forget the importance of celebrating small wins. Each time you say no without guilt, you are strengthening a skill that will serve you for the rest of your life. I like to give myself a quiet acknowledgement or even share with a friend, I managed to protect my time today, and it felt good. Celebrating these moments reinforces your confidence and makes the habit stick. Finally, the ultimate reward of learning to say no is peace. When I began practicing this consistently, I noticed a deep sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. My energy improved, my focus sharpened, and my relationships became more meaningful. I no longer felt overextended or resentful. Instead, I felt empowered, respected, and fully present in every interaction I chose to engage in. This sense of control over your life, your time, and your energy is priceless, especially as we age and want to prioritize what truly matters. So, to anyone watching, remember this: saying no is not an act of cruelty or selfishness. It's an act of wisdom, self-respect, and care for the life you want to lead. Begin with small no's, practice with intention, and notice the positive ripple effects in your life. Share your experiences, your challenges, and your victories in the comments. I would love to hear how learning to say no has transformed your peace and happiness. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more insights and guidance on living your best life after 60. Your time, energy, and well-being are precious. Protect them, cherish them, and enjoy the freedom that comes with setting boundaries. Here's to saying no with confidence and living your life fully, without guilt, at any age.